This is the Space Coast TPO Governing Board meeting, and today is December 14th, 2023. I'm calling this meeting to order. Please stand join me for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah!
Thank you. Do we have a quorum yet, Zoe? Where's Zoe? No? All right, if we do not have a quorum yet, we'll give a few minutes. Maybe a quorum will come in. In the meantime, public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment on an item not on the agenda should complete a speaker card. Do we have any public comments? Yes, we do. And for the agenda item, please fill out a speaker card and give it to a member of staff, which will be right up here, and you'll be called on when the item is discussed. I have one speaker card. It's from Sandra Sullivan. If you wanted to go ahead and you can speak now, Sandra. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sandra Sullivan from South Patrick Shores. And it's come to my awareness, and I wanted to come here because this is about transportation, and we have a lot of city representation here to let you know something that is going to be on the county agenda on Tuesday pertaining to waiving impact fees for development for affordable housing. Now, at a recent meeting here, our wonderful, beautiful Georgiana said, we have a fiscal cliff coming in transportation in 2025. I did records requests to the county to where we stand on our transportation, and according to them, we have current estimate of unfunded capacity improvements, $699 million. Now, the county's been relying a lot on new development for their transportation, and with the SB 102, which is going to substantially impact property taxes for the county, the impact fees are that much more important. As you're probably aware, impact fees have not been updated in 23 years. So with all of the CPI increases for the cost of construction is much more expensive today, and so they're unrealistically low to begin with. So I urge you to lean into your county commissioners and recommend that they do not waive impact fees for affordable housing. And under SB 102, just as I'm sure you know, affordable housing isn't just low-income housing, it's middle America housing, which is the biggest market of all. So we, the people, will end up with much higher taxes as a result of this. So I'm very concerned about our transportation. We all see it. We all see the growth. We all see the traffic backing up, and they've been kicking the can down the road for a long time on transportation issues, and we really need to be realistic and start being proactive and not waiting until this is a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. That is the only speaker card I have. We'll move on to the reports. Georgiana.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see all the members here this afternoon. The report on public outreach for November and December is included in your package. A couple of highlights very quickly. If you were not able to attend our 2023 State of Transportation event, you can watch it on our YouTube page. Ant Farm Media captured the event for us, and it was really important to hear from our local governments and our modal agencies about their vision and their concerns related to transportation here on the Space Coast, and there were a lot of common themes. So it was a very successful event as we kick off our brand new 2050 long-range transportation plan. On November the 19th, we celebrated the World Day of Remembrance for Traffic Victims at Riverfront Park in Cocoa. And we honored stories of lives that were tragically cut short due to traffic crashes. And, we take the time to stand with the families which have been impacted and emphasize that behavior can change a life. And the families find it deeply moving. And this is a photograph of the World Day of Remembrance. And we'd like to express our appreciation to Vice Mayor Minas, who was representing the TPO and took the time to speak about not only what the TPO is doing, but your personal experience, and Councilmember Koss as well. And so thank you for your leadership and for attending that event. Lastly, the TPO facilitated a quiet zone workshop with the Federal Railroad Administration last week. And we brought all the local parties together here in Brevard County. And as you know, it's federal law to blow horns when passing through a grade crossing, a quarter mile in advance of the crossing. And quiet zones has a minimum length of a half mile, so a quarter mile in each direction from the crossing location could be considered a quiet zone. So the FRA representatives provided education on the process. They offered to take part in a physical assessment, a field review, and help the local staff really navigate the application process. So, there's certainly benefits and drawbacks from having a quiet zone, but Brevard County and the cities are assessing the next steps. I think the Melbourne City Council met this week and on Tuesday and has directed staff to begin reaching out to Brevard County and FDOT concerning a potential memorandum of agreement. So they are looking to pursue them. And so, the decision really does need to be made based on the local leaders and what they believe is in the best interest of the community. And, there is quality of life issues, but there's also safety issues. So it's balancing both of them. But the TPO is here to assist as needed.
Georgiana, while we're on the railroads, I noticed something the other day that kind of caught me by surprise as one of the Brightline trains came by. It blew through the intersection before the arms were even all the way down. That, I thought, well, that's not good.
Well, we can certainly, do you remember what location that was at?
I believe it was at Eyster in US 1.
I'm sure Brightline would
I'm
want to know that information.
not 100% sure that's where it was. But,
Okay.
I
This
do
was just
remember
within
it
the past
thinking
week?
It was odd. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's not good.
No.
Thank you for that. So yes, we are here to offer assistance, and we will keep you posted on those efforts. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. And the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee
Madam
report.
Chair, I think.
I'm sorry, Yvonne.
I just want to
Ms. Minus?
comment on that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Definitely, yeah, we had council meeting Tuesday. We had several speakers that were definitely for the quiet zone. So, and yeah, we are working with the county, and I did mention that I would just acknowledge that and to keep that abreast of what's going on, for our constituents. So, definitely, we are very much for the quiet zones throughout Melbourne and Brevard County, possible. But first, Melbourne.
Thank you, Ms. Minus. Thank you. All right, the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee report, Georgiana.
On Monday, the Technical and Citizen Advisory Committees met, and at your place, you'll find a summary of actions and the attendance for the meeting. All action items received approval from the TAC and CAC. Cliff Graham from MLB was reelected as chair of the Technical Advisory Committee, and Steve's FDOT work program presentation, which we can really talk more about that when the DOT presents the tentative work program. And also in your package, you'll find the draft TAC-CAC meeting minutes from October. And that's it.
Thank you very much. The Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee report, Ms. Sarah.
Good afternoon, Senior Transportation Planner, Space Coast TPO. The Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee met on December 4th. They held their annual election of officers. Angelica Keene from UF IFAS Extension is going to remain as the chair, as well as Alan Woolwich from Brevard County Housing and Human Services as the vice chair. They reviewed the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, goals and objectives, which we'll be presenting to you as well today. And then they had their annual member orientation and a discussion about BPAC roles and responsibilities. The next meeting will be held on January 29th, and it will consist of a strategic visioning workshop as requested by the BPAC through our BPAC strategic analysis. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions, any comments? Thank you. All right, our next is a Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board, Terry Jordan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Terry Jordan, Space Coast Area Transit. I'm reporting on the the local coordinator board. The meeting took place on December 4th. Action items that were received approval were as listed in your agenda packet: the selection of a vice chair to the LCB, annual approval of our bylaws, the annual approval of our operations report, and approval of 1% of our disabled passengers being moved on to fixed route service, and the approval of the 2024 meeting calendar. Presentations were given on Government in Sunshine by our County Attorney's Office. An overview of the board member duties was given by myself, and then the transit development plans, goals, and strategies as presented by HDR, which you'll also hear again shortly. Additional items were the typical reports that we provide to our members, such as the Plan Performance Card, Volunteers in Motion Report Card, and Coordinators Report. One thing to mention that our fixed route ridership was 6% over the previous year, fiscal year's ridership, so we continue to regain ridership. And our demand response service continues to regain ridership as well. Space Coast TPO and Space Coast Area Transit are actively, once again, looking for replacement of members that are terming out. Right now we have 2 positions, a disabled representative, the primary and the alternate role, and along with the person who was 60 representing the elderly in Brevard, the alternate role are up for nomination. So we're advertising. Actually, that advertisement ends today, as a matter of fact. The next local board meeting will be held on Monday, February 12th. And this concludes my report. If there are any questions.
Any questions for Transportation Disadvantage? Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is a Florida Department of Transportation report. Chuck Coppernoll.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon.
So in your agenda package, what you have is the October report for our construction. And so what I'm going to do is give you the updates based off the November report. This is something we are trying to fix to make sure we get the right report to you by the time the agenda is published. So for the upcoming projects, we have a project, repaving project from Miller Cove Road to Pineda, how do you say that? Pineda Causeway. That had a former start date of January 2024. But they held a construction meeting on November 15th, and they determined that they were able to start on December 5th. So that project is actually started now. The State Road 500 US 192 at Hollywood Boulevard, that project had a start date of December 2023. And it has been pushed again to January 2024 due to delay of construction materials and other equipment deliveries. The A1A safety project was the implementation of improvements on State Road A1A to improve drainage and install for the construction of 12 pedestrian crossings. Has a start date of December 2023 in your report, but it is actually going to start in January 2024. And this is due to the public information meeting that there were some public concerns about the installation of those crosswalks. So they want to make sure they address those concerns and that everybody is comfortable with what they're doing. There is a new project that is on the outlook. This is northbound US 1 from Rocky Point Road to Malabar Road, and this is a repave project, and it's projected to start February 2024. Also, I'd also like to highlight that we received the POI report of PIO, Public Information Office at the FDOT, has informed me that the NASA Causeway Bridge is they're going to write a lengthy article to feature that bridge in the American Infrastructure magazine. And it's also going to include recognitions of Space Coast and Florida Department of Transportation's involvement in the planning, design, and construction of that project. And their deadline is February 2024, so hopefully that'll be published sometime next year. And the State Road A1A from Cocoa Island Boulevard to St. Lucie Lane, where they installed improved pedestrian safety measures by installing mid-block pedestrian signals. The PIO office has gone on to social media such as X or Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to announce the activation of two new mid-block pedestrian signals that are located on that stretch. So that concludes my report, and I will open the floor to any questions.
Questions? Yes.
You said, so the report you just gave was about stuff that was not in the packet.
Well, ma'am, what happens is I send a construction report, monthly construction reports with updates to current projects and any new projects that are coming up, but unfortunately they're getting it to us after the deadline when we have to have it here to get in the agenda packet.
Okay, because the one that, oh gosh, I don't want to be too loud. The one that you mentioned, the A1A, I believe that would go through my area, so I'm curious about that.
Right.
So it's going to start January?
As of now, yes,
December?
January
Okay.
2024, to address the public concerns that were addressed there.
What were the public concerns that were addressed? And
I don't know the
who
specific,
and-
address the specific issues that they had. I didn't ask that question, and I should have, but I really don't know. They're raised crosswalks. I don't know if they were concerned with traffic going through. Is it going to hurt the vehicles because of this last incident that happened?
You mean the one on?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was a cause of concern or not, but there's something about it that they were concerned about. And they
So
wanted to
where were those going to go?
let's see, there are.
I mean, where do I find out who's they, and where do I find out information about that? The particulars.
The particulars,
What is
exactly where
going
it's going to
in?
be, I'll tell you what, I'll find out for you.
But it's starting in January, so I need to know quickly, where would I,
Yeah, I want to make sure I get you, so I gave you my card.
Yes,
Please
yes,
email me so
I
I got
will.
your contact information. And,
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking in the next couple days, not next year.
yeah, no, I will. I'll
try to
probably
get that
email you in the
information.
parking lot before I leave. Because my residents do really want to know about that, so.
Well, maybe I can get lucky and reach out to the COC manager over at the Brevard Operations, get you an answer for that.
Okay, that would be,
Maybe I can. Well, I'll give it a try.
okay.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I know Suzanne may be able to actually shed some light on that.
Oh.
She's with Brevard Operations. She has all the answers.
Good afternoon. I'm Suzanne Phillips. I am the Brevard Operations Engineer for FDOT. Yes, we recently installed some raised pedestrian crossings down in Indy Atlantic, and we had some public feedback from those. So we're going to meet with the City of Cocoa Beach. We're going to have representatives from our design office get with you guys. You'll probably hear something, if not this week, early next week, so we can get together and have those discussions to get some input from you guys and to make sure it's the right project to do. Does that answer your question?
No, but I like records. I like to look at stuff.
Yeah, I can get you in touch with somebody right away. I don't have all the specifics as far as the details. There are, I believe there are 12 that intersections in the two-way pairs, the two one-way pairs there. So, but I don't have plans in front of me or anything, but I can get you a copy of them. I can get you whatever you need for them.
Yes, yeah, that would
Okay.
be great, a copy, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now, Suzanne, are we talking about the project on Fifth Avenue? Or are you speaking of the Cocoa Beach?
I'm talking about the Cocoa Beach.
Okay, I think she's referring to, and I think what Chuck was referring to was Indy Atlantic on Fifth Ave.
Oh, is that-
Which was really a pedestrian safety project.
Yes.
And, you know, this was an important project, I think, for the locals to
Mm-hmm.
kind of slow traffic down so that the pedestrians can actually get across the road
Yes,
without
but,
getting hit.
and I'm in Melbourne Beach,
Correct.
but what happened there on Fifth Avenue. I mean, several people, even Melbourne Beach people, but Indiana people, the cars literally flew up in the air and some
Yes.
cars were damaged and, people didn't know about it. People were really upset.
Yes.
You may be talking about, I guess, additional things that are going to go in Cocoa Beach, but I know I've seen the 5-year plan. It's going to come down through Melbourne Beach too. So I guess I'm just wanting to know what, I'm afraid that same thing may happen in our area
Sure.
as well. And so I'd like to kind of know what for the entire area, what's going on, what are the plans, so I can.
Well, but before.
And this is my first meeting, so.
Before any construction, we'll be meeting with the DOT for any future improvements in Melbourne Beach. There's a big resurfacing project in the work program. Now, what is included within that project is still unclear because the department is kind of moving to pavement-only projects, and I'm not sure really. We will be sitting down with the DOT project manager, and you all will be at the table when we have those discussions. So, we will definitely make sure that you're in the loop within that section. But as far as Fifth Avenue and what the motorists were dealing with, I think they were not prepared. However, I will say that if they're flying through the air, it must have been really speeding, right?
Yeah.
But
No, I don't.
Back and meeting with the local agencies to have the conversations with them, which is the ones I was talking about, the one-way pairs on A1A. So I think those are the only two we have coming up anytime soon. So any ones in the future, we would, of course, be working with. We always go out and work with the locals during and throughout the design phase. So if there are projects in design, then you should be hearing from somebody, and if not, we can certainly get you in touch with someone.
So how would I find out in the design process?
Okay.
When the discussion was happening for a particular section, if I wanted to be in the loop, because I've been hearing about this DOT process
Right.
for a while from the prior commission, when I used to go to commission meetings as a citizen. But they always say, we don't really know anything yet. We don't really know anything yet. But then I know that the contract published for, there's already contracts that are underway for the entire section of A1A from like Sebastian all the way up. So stuff is happening, but I keep hearing, we'll learn more. But then what happens, I'm afraid, is that stuff gets planned and then we learn about it afterwards. So for specific sections, is there a schedule of where you are so far and when you're going to be working on that so that we can make sure that we're involved if we're interested in a particular section?
Yeah, one place you can go to, it's www.cflroads.com. And within that site, you can sort by county, you can sort by roadway. We have everything from projects that are in planning and design through construction. So, and just, to let you know, like a design project takes a good solid 2 years before it'll see construction for the most part. Some take a lot more time than that. But so, if we do have projects in the design phase, chances are you'll know well in advance. But that'd probably be the best place because we have, the district probably has 300-400 projects under design and construction at any point in time. So it's hard to know every single one of the ones that are going on, but if you go there and you have questions, that'll tell you even who the design project manager is that you can reach out to, and you can get all the details that you want from them.
And the design project manager, is that a DOT person or a private contractor then that's working on it?
It's a DOT.
Oh, it is a DOT. Okay, so we would be able to just, if we were interested in a particular design, we would contact that.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Chair, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, yes, Ms. Minus.
Okay, I'd like to, and thank you for that information about getting to that website, if you will, but I want to ask about from Main Street to University in Melbourne, US 1, I think it was supposed to have been narrowing that lane, so just want to know where is that, I can go to that website, but I'm just asking you since you're here.
So I don't think Chuck is aware of this, but we actually had a meeting with city staff and DOT project manager yesterday. It was a Teams call. And they are, Tammy has given some feedback. They went over some of the public comments and talked about the concerns with the medians expressed from the citizens. So they're going to go back and kind of take a look at things, do some tweaking, and then before anything is finalized and it moves forward, it will be going back to the city to take a look at. So we talked about funding, making sure that the TPO funding was being used in a way that the city approves, because we did put funding on it to add and enhance those safety improvements. So the DOT is coordinating with city staff, and so they should be reaching out to kind of let you guys know, where the project is, but it is still being massaged and worked on. And the medians was just really to kind of make it safer for the pedestrians, because it is really, it's a 6-lane section of road with a bidirectional turn lane. And so it can be difficult for pedestrians to get across the road. It's really a 7 lanes of highway. But striking that balance to where the business community and the citizens support it, and to your point. And so, yes, you can talk with the city manager, and they should have briefed Jenny on that.
Okay, that, I definitely understand the safety factor, but I travel that 24/7 and with an hour of sleep. But the traffic for the companies, for the residents or for the employees is going to all of the organizations down south. It is always very busy. And to change that, to narrow it, would be very troubling, frustrating for those people trying to get to work or trying to get home, or even to Malabar, wherever they live down south. Definitely, I appreciate that about the residents, pedestrians, but we also have red lights and crosswalks. And when you do not adhere to that, then that may be, I think if we go back and look at a lot of the statistics, it was that they were jaywalking. But if you cross at the appropriate place, then I do not believe that it would be a problem.
Yeah.
So if we, and like I said, I will get with the city manager on that to make sure that we can just get repaving versus narrowing the streets.
Thank you, Ms. Minas. Any other questions for Mr. Coppernoll? Nope, seeing none, thank you very much. Good report, thank you.
folks.
Thank you. We're going to move item 6A, we're going to move that up on the agenda, and that is going to be done by Kathy.
Yes, good afternoon, Board. Kathy Alexander Corbin, I'm the Program Management Administrator at District 5, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to talk about our tentative work program. And what we're talking about is fiscal years 25 through 29. And if you're not aware, or just a refresher, the tentative work program is a representation of our transportation needs for the upcoming 5 years. And this could be needs across seaport, spaceport, rail, transit, roadways, airports, and it represents various activities. It could be planning, design, concepts, maintenance, operations, construction, anything that's related to these needs. And it's built on an annual basis in collaboration with our local partners, federal and state agencies, as well as our MPOs and our TPOs. And each district builds their tentative work program. It is then combined with all the other districts to become the statewide tentative work program, and is submitted to the governor, legislature for review, and ultimately for adoption, July 1st of each year. So what you're seeing here is some key dates for our tentative work program. We hosted a virtual and also an open house, you could say, where we shared our tentative work program online. That was done in October. The public comment deadline for that, so that we can include those in our public hearing, was November 3rd. We submit our final tentative work program to the executive office at the end of this month, which is December 26th is the date on that. The Florida Transportation Commission will also hold a public hearing on the tentative work program, and that is scheduled for January 8th, the onset of the new year. And it'll go through the reviews, executive, legislative, budgetary, financial, ultimately going to the governor for approval and adoption July 1st of 2024. So again, it represents what we have planned from July 1st of 24, fiscal year 25, all the way to June 30th of 2029. So we continue to see increasing pricing trends when it comes to our transportation construction projects. It's a major influence to our work program. In comparison to last year, we're actually seeing less cost variability on some of our materials and resources. However, it's still increasing in cost. We are seeing more competition, which is great. That means we have more bids for projects that we're putting out as opposed to last year where we were getting maybe just one or none, and the prices were really high for that one bid. So we're seeing more competition this year, and that's optimistic. But this variation and fluctuation really has several factors. One is supply chain issues that we have seen post-COVID. There's also been material and labor shortages in the last few years, and something that we're probably all very familiar with is just inflation overall has impacted material cost and resources. So within the table here, you kind of get a preview of what some of these cost impacts have been to the department across the state. So the first line on this table is our contract price adjustments. And the state has paid out over $363 million across the state for adjustments on contracts that have been bid, probably because of delays in procurement of material, or maybe just very significant fluctuations of prices of when they bid. So in order to keep projects going, they have gone back and adjusted those contract costs at the tune of $363 million to make sure these projects get completed. On an annual basis, the department runs a kind of a cost model, cost per mile for various different type of roadway typicals. And what you're seeing here is a representation of a 4-lane rural divided highway, or roadway, you could say. And this is the cost per mile. So you can see over the last 3 years an increase in cost from 21 to 22, 22 to 23. The first one here is being new construction for a cost per mile increase in the last year of 17%. But there was also an increase on that you can see from 21 to 22. So this is an accrued increase now, cumulative. Now, down below is the resurfacing index. Cost per mile for resurfacing material has gone up 26.5% in the last year. So again, the variability is still there. It hasn't been as high as we saw in the last few years, but it's still continued to increase, and it's anticipated to continue to cost us more. So we take that into consideration. Clearly, we have to update all of our estimates, but this is definitely implications when we're building the tentative work program. There's also additional critical considerations that take place when we have to build and balance. We have to balance a work program against available resources, but we also have to meet certain program areas and targets as well. So it's a huge balancing act, and it's a challenge from year to year as we build a tentative. What backs up the tentative work program are allocations and revenues. And really, those projections are really conservative. Just because of the state of the economy and what we're seeing with inflation, the revenue projections aren't as high. They're better than anticipated, but they're really not projecting to be significant enough to offset what we're seeing in terms of inflation and increases. Transportation revenues were just slightly 1.5%. The revenues from fuel taxes was also very low. It's only 2% over the work program, which is 5 years. The forecast for rental surcharge did not change much. Dock stamps actually reflected a decline, and that's due to some of the increased interest rates for borrowing money. So there's not as many people purchasing real estate nowadays. So we didn't expect that the revenues and the allocations would offset some of those increases that we're seeing, but it certainly did help. Another significant factor for our tentative work program is we had resurfacing program adjustments this last year, and this was in terms of lane mile requirements for lanes that we have to upkeep to make sure that we meet a certain standard, as well as the formula that is used for the funding that is allocated for that resurfacing program. So we have to, by Florida statute, we have to maintain a certain percentage quality of state highway systems. Our pavement quality has to maintain at a certain level. In order for us to maintain that level and not dip downward, they had to adjust the lane mile formula as well as the formula. So for District 5, we gained more lane miles, and our allocations for those lane miles also changed. So that impacted our resurfacing program, to some of which you've heard, have been more of a maintenance type rehabilitative effort. It just means that we had to pivot and be more strategic on which projects are going to have other additional items and maybe leverage funding partnership in any way possible so that we can get any add-ons to these projects. And then lastly, our contingency levels. I don't think it's a surprise to many of us the last few years how variable it's been for the department with some of that uncertainty on what bid results may be. We really got to critical low levels in our contingency. And we went through, we're required to maintain a certain percentage of contingency year to year on our work program. And we actually held those to the requirement, just knowing that it has been so variable in the last few years. We went below what would be a normal contingency level for us at the department, trying to make sure that we had the money available in case of any higher bids to make sure projects were still going out. So we built in the responsible contingency levels, preparing for those continued anticipated cost increases that are still in the horizon and that are projected in the economy. And we balance and build the work program, taking into consideration the FDOT compass, which are the 6 core elements that you see here. Community-centric, that's always a focus for us, projects that really impact our communities. Safety always being a primary concern. We want to continue to build the resiliency for our region, develop the workforce, and that's because that contributes to the economy for the Central Florida area. We want to leverage technology wherever possible, and also strengthen the supply chain for the Central Florida region. I talked about the challenges for balancing the work program, and sometimes we don't like to use the words deletion, moved out, or defers, but sometimes it's necessary. What you see here are some of the impacts to the Space Coast TPO region in terms of deletions. Now, these were not due to balancing per se. The first one that you see here on the top, I guess it would be top left, you have 445856-1 Michigan Avenue. This was a phase that was deleted out because it's actually going to be taken care under a different contract. So technically, yes, this was deleted, but it is being taken care under a department consultant, so that is still going to go out. So it's not deleted, just transferred. Below that, we have 448378-1. This is the US 1 from W.H. Jackson Street to Crane Creek Bridge. This is a bridge rehab project. The construction and construction support, which would be the CEI portion, were deleted from 25 based on coordination with the local agency since it's included in another project. So again, a deletion, but it is still being taken care of. And then we did have one that was included, the construction support for 451689-1. That was a deck and joint rehab project. That project is included under another one, 448997-1 and 448977-2. So again, the funds are no longer programmed under these projects. However, the work is still being done under another mechanism. So they're still represented in the tentative work program. Here we did have the State Road A1A from south of International Drive to Long Point Road. This is 430202-5. I will say this one was one that we had to defer because of balancing reasons. Sometimes not all the projects make it into the year that's intended or can remain because of funding. So this is one that we had to defer from 25 to 27. And this was also done in coordination with the Space Agency. So this was also something that was coordinated and the best decision was made to go ahead and defer that. 5-year outlook for the region. Overall, we have over $1.2 billion for Brevard County. Here you see a breakdown of each of the year. This includes or displays the amount of federal, state, and local funds allocated to the Space Coast TPO. The first 2 fiscal years are significantly higher, and this is due to the large resurfacing projects along I-95. The latter 2 years are lower than the earlier years. We typically don't program our resurfacing projects in the last 2 years, so those will build up in the upcoming tentative work programs. We just program those in the first 3 years. So that's your breakdown there per year for the region. And if we do a little bit further dig into the different type of projects that are programmed within that total amount, safety projects would be your paved shoulders, urban corridor improvements, any kind of signing and pavement marking, pedestrian safety, intersection improvements. So there's a total of over $13 million represented in the upcoming 5 years. Capacity would be just that, adding more lanes, adding more traffic, increasing capacity on the roadways, close to $55.5 million in the upcoming 5. Preservation, our resurfacing program would fall under that. Another area that falls into that is our bridge repair, rehabilitation, and replacement program. That's also a Florida statute requirement. So you see we have close to $400 million for preservation in Brevard County. Multimodal, this is your transit, aviation, and space funding. So over $650 million for that figure. Operations could be signal upgrade, ITS, intelligent transportation signal timing, those type of projects. And here you have over $5.5 million in the upcoming 5. Our bike ped, trail type projects, close to $28 million. And miscellaneous, pretty much a catch-all. If it doesn't fit in the above, it would come in the miscellaneous. This could be maintenance, it could be landscape, it could be rest area. We have that in the upcoming 5 years, lighting and electronic vehicle charging stations. So they're close to $47 million for those type of projects in the upcoming 5 years.
Well, that was half the budget.
Multimodal, yeah, a big chunk of that is your spaceport. You have a good amount of spaceport funding that funnels through the FDOT, and that's why that is that large.
Give me an example of that.
Well, Space Florida.
Launch pad?
Private space industry. So it is Space Florida, you know, they are a special district that is tasked with bringing in,
Right.
Private space industry, and it is, the DOT actually matches it at 50%. So it's a tremendous amount of money. But it is a dedicated funding, it's dedicated funding sources. It is.
Yes, it is, but that's the large. It's really high dollar figures because being a space type industry and those type of projects, we have a breakdown of that and we can give you specifically what it is. But we have a breakdown of everything that is covered, but the good bulk of that is space funding.
Yes, and that also includes our Port Canaveral,
That's
although
true.
there is not is nowhere near as much money for the port as there is the space. The space it's predominantly most of the money.
Yeah, as well as airport too. So that's really what falls into those 3 major areas for multimodal.
Okay.
We can provide a breakdown if you like. You can look at that specifically. All right, I'll highlight a few key projects. At the end, there's this last slide has a reference to our tentative work program where you can actually go out there and pull down the report for the county. It'll show you everything that we have programmed. You can also go to the GIS map that's available on the website. If there was a certain location that you were interested, you can actually just go straight to that and find if there's any projects planned in that area. So it's just a couple of projects that I'll highlight because like you saw, there's a lot of money being programmed in the Brevard County region. Resurfacing, I mean, considering the changes that we had in the resurfacing program, you're really going to see very resurfacing heavy for the department in the upcoming 5 years. So here you have several of them. We have the I-95 projects from State Road 46 from 46 to north of 46. That's a 3-mile project. That's about $13.5 million. And then the other I-95 projects is about 7.7 miles. That's about $38 million. So between those two, you see there that they have design in 25, which is the first year of the work program, and then construction in 27, so that's 2 years later. Next, you have resurfacing along State Road 528, and that is close to 4.5 miles, and that's over $12.5 million for that roadway. And then we have a resurfacing project along State Road A1A from 520 to George King Boulevard. That's 3 miles. That's over $7 million. And then last, you have State Road 507 from south of Lake Woods Drive, Sun Lake Road to US 192. That's just shy of 3 miles, $7.3 million. All of these are going to follow the same schedule. Design in the first year of the tentative, which is 25, with construction in the third year, which is fiscal year 27. Here on the left-hand side, we have 437983-1. This is State Road 524 from Friday Road to Industry Road. This is an actual operational improvement project. Here we're widening and adding turn lanes. The design is funded in the first year of the work program, fiscal year 25, and it's close to $7.5 million. And on the right-hand side, we have another 25 project. This is construction, though, not design. And this is a local agency program project with the city of Satellite Beach. So this is $3.2 million that will be constructing safety improvements along Jackson Avenue. Here we have a project that's just entering. This is the project development and environmental study that is funded in fiscal year 25, the first year. This is I-95 at Malabar Road interchange, FPID 453587-1. That's $3.5 million in the first year, where they'll go ahead and begin the PD&E study for that interchange. All right, and then two other projects, the last two that I have highlighted. On the one side, you have the rest area, you have the northbound rest area, MIMS. Design is funded in 28, which is the fourth year, close to $2 million for that one. And then on the southbound direction is the other side of the rest area. The design is funded in fiscal year 28 as well, with the funding at $1 million for that. So a total of $2.9 million for rest area in Brevard County. And then we have an also regionally significant project. We have the intermodal station development. The design is funded in 27 and construction in 28. The funding in the tentative work program is $15.5 million. So overall, in summary, we have 15 priority projects for the Space Coast TPO, close to $99 million represented in the upcoming 5 years. We do want to take the opportunity that, you know, as much as we would like to include everything in work programs, sometimes that is not possible. As you can see, there's a challenge with balancing, building and balancing, but there are grant opportunities available as well. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act actually created several competitive grant opportunities that can be pursued in case needed for certain type of projects. Protect is a resiliency type of project need. This could be anything that improves resiliency or contributes to improved resiliency for the area. There's also the MEGA, which is for very large, complex type projects. There's the INFRA grant, which is the Nationally Significant Multimodal Freight and Highway Projects Program. That's a long one. There's also the Safe Streets for All. All of these are grants that are available that FDOT would love to endorse. We would like to contribute and help out with. The contact person at the department is Alice Giuliani, and in order for support, FDOT would provide a letter of consistency for that grant if you wish to pursue it. Right. And here is my contact information. If there's any questions about the tentative, prior to coming up, I know there was questions about who you can reach out to. You can certainly reach out to me, and then I'll reach out to whoever I need to reach out if there's any questions on the tentative work program or questions in the department with projects. I'll be glad to assist. That is the website for our tentative work program public hearing. It is still up and running. Information is still available, so feel free to go out there and view information as you wish.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mayor Medina.
Ms. Catherine, thank you so much for your presentation, and moreover, thank you and the Secretary in including the Malabar interchange improvement, the PD&E study. I just wanted to go again on the record, and you'll probably hear this more often. We had a loss of life in that corridor. We really believe anything that can be done to expedite this process in improving that interchange may save some lives in the very near future. So if you could take that back to the Secretary, we really would appreciate that.
I certainly will. I will take note to that and bring it back.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allender, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Catherine, I'm Commissioner Jerry Allender from the Caneva Port Authority. I'm the Caneva Port Authority's representative to TPO, and have had the honor of serving on a TPO for quite a few years. I'd like to make a few comments just for the record, and then ask a couple of questions. By the way, I have, for anybody's information, I have supplied Catherine with a copy of my comments, so within reason, she's sort of aware of what I'm going to be saying and asking, but I didn't want anybody to think that I've caught her off guard or anything. I ask that these comments and questions be included in the official minutes of today's board meeting so that it is clear on the record basically the position of the Canaveral Port Authority. Port Canaveral is very appreciative of the partnership with FDOT, especially over the last few months as we have worked to ensure FDOT understands the State Road 401 bridge replacement and the widening of State Road 528 are top priorities for the port, but also for the county and the millions of visitors that come to Brevard County. On November 3rd of this year, the port submitted a letter signed by Captain John Murray, CEO of the Port Authority, to the Work Program Office to formalize the port's comments on tentative work program. Our comments stated, and I quote, State Road 401 bridge remains a single point of failure for the Port Canaveral's entire north side operations. The north side remains a top strategic fuel supply for the state of Florida. It houses most of the port's cargo operations, 4 cruise terminals, access to the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, U.S. Navy NO2, NASA, as well as launch service provider, manufacturing, and office facilities. The State Road 528 widening project is critical and is a critical east-west connector for North Brevard, as well as the county. This widening project has been a decade-long planned FDOT project, and I might say a top priority of TPO, and is a vital access point for our area import-exports, local business industry, military and space operations, emergency response and evacuations, and overall safety of residents and visitors. It is our hope that these priorities will be considered as top projects for our region, and the department will prioritize funding of these projects as soon as possible. A couple of questions for Catherine. A resurfacing of State Road 528 suggests that the pavement is in poor condition. This would be an added layer of concern on our part as to regarding the timing and especially the funding for replacing the roadway 528. Does FDOT recognize 528 as a priority? And has the department evaluated the opportunity to incorporate these allocated resurfacing funds into the future widening plans?
I did receive your letter, so we do have that document in the work program public hearing, and that was shared with that executive management, so they're aware as well. So just wanted to make sure that we have that confirmation that we do have that documented, and they are reviewing it for upcoming programming needs and what is needed. What happens, there's different funding sources, and not all funding sources can be cross-used on one job to the other. This is the funding on the 528 is strictly resurfacing funding. And when they go through and they evaluate the payment conditions, based on the payment condition of the roadway, that's when they decide when that project needs to go, when it needs to be constructed so it doesn't further deteriorate the pavement. I would have to go back to the group that does that analysis to find out what their assessment was of 528 to determine if there was first to confirm what the evaluation they had done, and also if they determine how long the payment would last before the widening would be programmed to see if it would make it that long. The reason why that is included in the work program is because it's probably deteriorating, and the way pavement deterioration works, once it hits that pitfall, it goes down quickly. So the reason why it was programmed is because we're trying to avoid that. It's a lot costlier if you have to come in and do a whole pavement replacement as opposed to the rehabilitation. So I would imagine that ran those evaluations, see what the payment life or what is left, and determined there was a need to resurface the roadway instead of waiting to the widening. And they would have made some kind of assessment of benefit cost and time associated with that. I
if
will
that
certainly
is-
take that back and get that and find out for you if that
Okay,
was
if you
done
could
on this.
Supply that to us, certainly appreciate it. One other thing, at the rate our state is growing, you've spoken about the gas tax and decreasing revenue for road work. Has there been any consideration by the department to reevaluate the need for statutory requirement for a resurfacing program? Several times you mentioned that you're doing the resurfacing based on statutory requirements. Has there been any thought of going back before the legislature, perhaps to consider reducing those requirements based on the reduction of gas taxes that are coming in?
That was a topic. So before we get into developing the work program, we open up in July. In July is when we start putting everything together. Before that, there's a series of programming planning workshops that happens in the department where they evaluate each of the program needs. And that was brought up this year, is the need to possibly go back and determine if there's any kind of change in legislation that is needed for the paving. For this cycle, there was just no time. There's no way. It takes too long to try to do that. So what they had to do was accommodate the allocation in the formula to make sure that we meet that 80% for the statute, that we don't fall beneath that really is what it's trying to do and maintain that, our payment quality at where it is.
Is there any plan in the future for the next legislative session? Obviously, in January is a little close, but how far in advance do they make that evaluation before they perhaps
I will
send it to
find
the
out.
legislature?
I will reach out to the central office counterparts. That's really, the central office is the one that manages all of the legislative coordination in terms of the resurfacing. All of our state programs are really managed out of central office. So I will go back to the resurfacing program office and find out what the plan is for the future, if they're contemplating that and what the time frame might be.
Okay, thank you. One other question. Is the statewide road system in such disrepair that we need to surface at the same level that we are? Which obviously you've said you're trying to comply with the Florida statute as to resurfacing. But in general, are the roads in the state really as bad as are necessary in order to use all the funding that is available? I mean, how is that evaluation made?
Again, it's a really specific, they have a whole team dedicated to the resurfacing program, and it would be a disjustice if I try to narrow it down to my very minute level of knowledge on it. I can find out exactly, but clearly we're trying to maintain by Florida statute that 80%, and we're trying to not fall beneath it, which is what caused the formula for the lane miles and the formula backing for the funding to be changed this cycle. Because had we not done that, then we would fall underneath that 80% in the upcoming years, and then it would be an issue with not meeting that Florida statute requirement. So we're trying to avoid that. But I will go back and take your questions. I have them right here, and I'll take them just as written. I'll take them back to the resurfacing program and see if I can get more specific answers for you.
And be assured, my intent was not to put you on the spot or anything. I mean,
Nope.
I know sometimes as a presenter, we say things and then people ask questions that is beyond our present knowledge, so we have to go back and evaluate. And that's all we're really asking that to be done, is that the department evaluate the priorities that are needed in Brevard County, especially from our viewpoint, the 401 as well as 528.
No, I respect that, and I will take the questions back and try to get some answers for you, certainly.
Okay.
We are lucky in Florida. We do have some of the best paved roads in the state, so in the whole country. So our state does pretty good in our pavement conditions, so that's what we're trying to maintain. But I'll get answers for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Allender. Ms. Minus, but hold on just one second. Did you want to?
I will wait till after.
Ms. Minus, please.
Okay, thank you. Just want to go back and refer back to the deferred projects. The second one, that was the 448-378-1. That is from Crane Creek to W.H. Jackson, the second one. You said that it's deferred. How long down the road is it deferred?
Let's see, I don't know if I have the notes. I may have to come back and tell you when that second project.
Madam Chair, if I may, that particular project, Kathy, if I'm not mistaken, it's a deletion, but it's not a deletion of the project. The construction support phase was deleted, and the city of Melbourne was going to use basically the DOT's contract, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So the money wasn't taken away?
Yeah, no, this was one of the scenarios where the programming, it's an administrative, so you had to take the programming away, but the project is still going to be led in the upcoming 5 years. So let me see, program construction letting for the project on the left was shifted from late 25 to 26. So you could see 25, it doesn't say it on there, but
Right.
yeah. Yeah, it went from 25 to 26. No, that's not the right one.
No, I don't
Yeah,
think,
no,
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's in
Scratch that.
25, yeah.
Yeah,
It's in fiscal year 25.
Yeah, it's probably still, I'll find out if that 448793-1, if that's a different schedule. Typically, we would note it if it's shifted a year in our notes, and I'm not having that one, but I'll confirm for you and let you know.
Right, I remember you mentioned on some of the others that was pushed out to a year, so in the next fiscal year, but I didn't hear anything on that one.
No.
So that's why I asked.
Yeah,
How
no,
far out?
I'll confirm for you. What we try to do is put it on the notes here, like this one says 26 to 27, so
Right.
we're aware that, I have a feeling that one is in the same year, but we'll confirm.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We have a public comment. If you can just hold your comment, let me get a question in here as well. On page 96 in our packet, the 3 deleted items, I realize they're not deleted projects, they're covered under a different project number. So the money that would have paid for those before they were moved over, is that money would still be there, that funding money for those projects, even though they've been moved over, that money would still be there, so it could go to a different project.
It would be, in some of these cases, if it was absorbed into a different one and that funding wasn't included, then yes, that funding could have been added to that other FM number. So I would have to go back and look and see specifically what the funding, what it was, where it was previous, and if it got added to the other project.
All right.
And I'm assuming it's this slide, I don't know which one 96 is, but it would be our deletions where they were absorbed with something else.
So they absorbed the product and absorbed the funding with it, possibly?
More than likely. If it wasn't, because that project may have not included that work, but we realized there was overlapping limits, and so we had to bring the funding over. That's the very likely what the scenario is.
All right, thank you. And then on our page 97, where you have in fiscal year 24-25, the funding there is, when you gave the website, we could go to get the breakdown, that 397,897,000, that right there, that number. Where is that? Where are those projects? Where is that money going to be spent?
These numbers is just the breakdown per year. This is not gonna, you're not gonna find it in the work program website. We have those tables available and we can provide those separately. This is just our summary tables that we use to develop the presentations.
Madam Chair, this is in our transportation improvement program, so if you,
Okay.
our tip that we adopt every year, and that's on our website, will actually list every single project that makes up the funding within each one of those years.
All right, thank you very much. And then my last question on page 100, the infra grant. We're expecting that money for the Ellis Road project, are we not?
We are expecting it, yes. Hopefully, it will be a Christmas, a New Year reward for all the hard work.
Is there any other funding money you might have around there, Kathy, that you can throw toward that Ellis Road project so we can get that?
That is definitely a topic at the department with how important this project is. So we're also wishing, that's also a gift that we hope that we get from the infra grant, which is why we posted that on there, because it is a great opportunity for projects that sometimes are limited with any kind of funding. You know, with large projects, it's hard to find all the money for these projects, so grant opportunity sometimes creates that availability.
All right, thank you.
May I?
Yes.
But before the public comment, if I may, before I talk about the funding or the lack thereof, I do want to make a point about the intermodal station development that Kathy mentioned. If the members remembered, December of last year, you gave us direction to set aside 2 years of our federal funding, TPO funding, for an intermodal station development, and that's for fiscal year 27 and 28, as Kathy mentioned. And so I am very nervous about the media getting a hold of this and thinking that all the money is there in an intermodal station is going to be absolutely constructed. So this is just a set aside. This is seed money, if you will. And of course, the TPO is working with the city of Cocoa and FDOT to conduct the feasibility study for the intermodal station, which is really the first step. So we're not sure if we'll be ready by then, but we certainly are trying to be proactive, and Brightline is aware of this funding as well. So just wanted to make that very clear. The other comments that I wanted to mention, and what strikes me with this presentation, is that the only priority project in this whole presentation for the TPO is the I-95 in Malabar PD&E, and that's only for $3.5 million. And so we, year after year, and Kathy is aware of this, and this isn't directed specifically at you,
It's okay.
but year after year, I mean, we have had so many lean years to where this is getting to be very painful, to say the least. We understand that preservation of the system is very important, but there is a lot of money going to maintenance, to Commissioner Allender's point. At what cost? Our priority projects are not moving. They're just sitting there, and they're getting very stagnant. I know over the years that, and as Kathy just mentioned, the department is encouraging funding partnerships and also trying to leverage the resurfacing program and asking the TPO or local governments to actually add funding to resurfacing projects for amenities that might be important for the community. And so our locals have done just that. The TPO has thrown a lot of money at resurfacing projects. Your project, for instance, to try and make these projects safer and of value to the community. Our local governments, the city of Melbourne, the city of Palm Bay, and the city of Cocoa has actually added funding to state road projects to get the design moving. Malabar Road, State Road 524, we have South Street, that the city may be setting aside money for a future PD&E. And so we have really tried to be funding partners, as you know, to try and move these projects forward. You mentioned grant opportunities. We are continually looking for opportunities to apply for grants. Ellis was the big one. But for us to cobble together the 20 or 40% match to apply for a grant, the department is having trouble doing that. And so, I question really, there is a lot of grant funding coming into Florida, but we don't seem to be getting anything here. I am very hopeful about Ellis because I'm not sure what Plan B is. And so this is very troubling. Couple that with the lack of critical infrastructure in the SIS-Cost feasible plan, which I'm not sure if you've actually seen that. The draft SIS-Cost feasible plan, which really lays out the investments, not just in the 5 years, but for the next 25 years for the department for SIS projects, which includes the construction of 528 and the 401 bridge replacement. Both of those projects are missing. So what does that mean for us? I mean, I find that deeply disturbing, and I think it is very important that the members understand how critical that is, for us, because I'm concerned that we're not going to have the surface transportation to be able to support our modal agencies, our big modes here on the Space Coast. So one of the requests that we made at the TACCAC, and if the board, is up for a presentation like this, is to have the department come back, say February or March of next year, and present on fair share. Because we're doing everything the department is asking us to do, but we don't really feel that we're getting any return on the investment. And I think it would be good to understand how, this funding is being dispersed throughout the Central Florida region. And, are we getting our fair share, with the DDR or SCTPO tax? When you go to the pump, that money should be coming back into Brevard County, according to our population and motor fuel tax collection. And I don't think it should just be going to resurfacing projects. We have a very long, critical list of projects. So again, I'm not shooting darts at you.
It's not personal.
You guys
and I
have a very hard job, and funding is competitive. I keep hearing that, which makes me nervous when I hear that. But what about fair share? And that is what our request is that we want the department to come back and, meaningfully present something to where we can feel comfortable that we are getting our fair share and that we have a future here for transportation here on the Space Coast. So take those comments.
Yes, Mr. Forrester.
If I can add to that, it's not only the share, but the money that is allocated, as you mentioned, in all of those lists there were only one or two things that were on our list.
Correct.
And it's, DOT comes in and they do whatever's on their list with minimal consultation and advanced planning on our part, because their priorities are not our priorities. And I think we need to do some work there to mesh those two systems, because when they're coming in and talking about fixing rest areas in MIMS, we've not had any discussion about fixing a rest area in MIMS. I'm a little baffled by that, and I'll also tell you, I'm still a little baffled about the cost of this intermodal thing. That's a lot of money.
That is worth bringing up for our discussion. I mean, I totally recognize and acknowledge the comments, and I'll take it back. And for whatever follow-up we need to do, we could certainly share that, because we do have breakout reports that tell us exactly where everything is located, and probably maybe just even expand on the opportunity to share which programs are statewide programs, which ones are programs that we have here at the district, which ones we do coordinate and collaborate with, which ones we have that opportunity to, because I think some of that is tied to program areas and targets that are requirements set by program. By programming needs. So like the rest area would be one of those. That's strictly dedicated rest area funding. But there's so many caveats. So I think there's an opportunity also to share some knowledge as to those different opportunities, different funding sources, and then go from there. I acknowledge the comments. I'll certainly take it back. Jordana, we could talk about when in the future, what the time frame is, March, April, whenever, to come back and talk about that fair share and the funding and priorities and all of that. We have done better, I think, year to year, trying to get the priority through our project intakes and funding, and I guess some of our funding plans, and how to put the SU funding on certain projects and how we do all that. There's always more room for improvement, though. So that's what this represents. It's just more challenges on how we can collaborate better.
Well, I think, going back to what Commissioner Allender was talking about on 528, spending money now to repay 528 when there's a program coming up in the near future at some point to widen it and make other major changes, why don't we roll that funding in and start the major changes now instead of doing a 5-year patch job and then tearing the whole thing up and starting over again? I've seen that happen in 2 or 3 different places, and I don't understand the rationale behind it. I understand that the money's available when it's available for this and for that, but it makes sense to me if you're allocating X million dollars to resurface a stretch of road, throw that in with the allocation to rebuild or widen that lane, and you've ended up saving the taxpayer a lot of money. You may have to shift your annual priorities around, but over that 5-year term, you've saved me and everybody else in here money. Just saying.
If I may.
Yes, Ms. Minus.
I concur also. I would third that. I totally agree with our directress, if you will, about us not having a fair share seat at the table. So I don't know if that 1 point some billion is that hardcore, or is that adjustable, or what? If we can revisit that. And you said that we're getting only 3 million out of the billion?
$3 million is the only priority project that we received from the district. All the rest that you saw, now, not including resurfacing, because there's millions going to resurfacing. But as far as our priority projects, all the rest is our measly $7.5 million we get a year, which doesn't go very far when you're dealing with transportation. But we have managed somehow to strategically place it to where we can actually move projects forward for our local governments and try to leverage the funding. But we can only get so far with $7.5 million each year.
Is it in a way that we can get with Ms. Catherine and you, and we can revisit that and then bring that back in March or April?
I think based on the questions that I've heard today and some of the comments, I have enough to take back as an action item to ask, and then I'll be able to provide some answers, and certainly then we can come and meet again, and by that point, we can run the report, and we can really talk about like what the funding has been historically, current, and moving forward also. Work program changes from year to year. A couple years back, we got cut significantly because of revenues in COVID. Well, everybody had projects eliminated back then. The good thing with this work program cycle, as much as we hate to say deletions and deferrals, we didn't have any deletions because of lack of funding. They may have had to move from one year to the other, but we didn't have any deletions because we didn't have any money for it. Or we didn't have anything that moved out of the 5 years, which is even more of an impact because now you had something that you had planned and now it's no longer there. So I know that's just a very, it's an optimistic highlight to this tentative work program, but it changes from year to year, and we have plenty of time before the next cycle where we can talk through maybe what other opportunities and priorities there may be.
Okay.
One more quick, go
ahead. Go ahead.
I heard you say 80% when you were referring to resurfacing. Are you 80% of what? Is that 80% of the budget?
80% of the state highway systems have to maintain a certain quality level.
Okay.
So if you fall below that, then we're not meeting a statutory requirement, which is an FTC performance measure, which means that we're basically doing an injustice for our pavement in our state. So that is the Florida statute requirement, that 80% of the state highway system roadway pavements, which is why, again, the formula had to be adjusted to ensure that we don't fall below that in the future.
Does that include the rest area? Is that statutory?
No, that's a different program area.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a different program area.
Is that mandatory to have that, or I'm looking at the funding for that?
Yep, I'll have to go back. I'm not sure if that falls under preservation, although our rest areas really do need to be renovated. Some of them really have stayed in the last couple decades. So, but I don't know if that's specifically a Florida statute requirement. So I'll have to go back and confirm.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Again, I reiterate about meeting with our directors, our co-directors, to get back with us with some updates. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Minus. Ms. Dennington.
I think coming back, you mentioned coming back in February, March. I think that would be great. I don't know if that's something that we vote on, whether you want that or not, but I would be for that. It would give us a chance to ask more questions and get some of the records or information that people have asked during this meeting, then to be able to ask better questions. This page 97 of your report, so it's got a 5-year outlook and it's got for each year. And then below that, it has it broken down into the types. And I guess this probably equals that 1.2 billion with a B. I mean, you have safety is 13 million and miscellaneous is 46 million. That just seems a little crazy to me. Are those actual like categories, or is that just sort of buckets that somebody put in, for a presentation, or is there actually like a CFR, like a regulation where those are in, and it lists what those are?
Safety-specific projects is what you're seeing. So it could be something that was a safety improvement, could be a pedestrian mid-block crossing,
So all those things like this,
sidewalk
like that.
improvements.
Is there a list or
Yes,
sort of
we can
a-
get those.
Yes, for each one of those. I would be
Yes.
interested to see that. Also, do you have a breakdown? It would be interesting, I think, to see what are the, so the project numbers, like next to that, like another column or whatever, or two more columns, but one would be sort of that list or where you could find that list, the criteria for what safety, what capacity is. The next column, here's all of the projects that have, that are in those areas. So would there be one of these project numbers, it would just fall into safety? Or would it be that maybe one project number, it has X amount from the safety bucket, X amount from capacity? But it'd be interesting if you had numbers to be able to compare.
Yes, it would have to be an appendix, because once you go out and you review the report, this is just a summary. It's just, we capture as much as we can for the projects that represent the bulk of these work mixes. Safety really falls in line with any of these other categories. There's safety included in multimodal and preservation projects. There's resurfacing projects where we add scope items that could be maybe guardrail improvements, say it's sidewalk. There could be additional work, safety work that is being included in those projects. But it's not broken out because of the fact that it's in that project. It's the main project is a preservation, resurfacing, maintenance, pavement preservation project. However, it does include safety components. So this is just a very high-level general representation of the projects. We can provide that breakdown of the projects that we tagged for these.
Okay.
It would have to be an appendix because it could be, this presentation could be, it'd be a lot longer than this.
Yeah, no, but I was curious if those were, because you talked about funding, how funding has to go for a specific thing, if those were tied to a specific statute or a specific regulation.
The safety could be
like those actual
specifically
buckets.
sidewalk gap, it could be mid-block crossing, it could be a pedestrian project.
Why is miscellaneous so much?
It could be the it could be rest area because there's not a specific work mix for the rest area. The EV charging is also not one that's represented in our major work mixes. We also had like truck parking in some of the other counties. That number for the funding and for truck parking falls under the miscellaneous because there's not a work mix for it. So the miscellaneous is a catch-all. It could be anything else that's not listed in our major work mixes above.
Mayor, I will send you a copy of our Transportation Improvement Program, which is the TPO's version of the DOT work program. Much easier to read than anything Kathy can give you.
I appreciate that, Georgiana.
Nothing against the work program, but it's not easy to digest. But we don't have a miscellaneous section, so, I know last year this came up. Some of our committee members was questioning what is actually in miscellaneous. But I will send that to you, and it will answer a lot of questions about the specific projects.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move to public comment here in a minute. If anyone has another question before Kathy takes her seat. Yes, sorry.
I want to thank DOT for working on the Melbourne Causeway. Love that, coming over the Melbourne Causeway, finally getting that done. But I was wondering if we can put signs on US 1 and coming over the O'Galley Bridge. Would we have the O'Galley Art District? If we could get a sign, put a little sign saying this is the O'Galley Art District, because I know some of the businesses would like, they have said that they would like that.
Looks like she's going to write that down and bring it back.
Taking the note, and I'll take it back and I'll run it through it will likely be our traffic ops group that we could run the signage through.
Mike Sanders is working on.
Mike Sanders, okay. He's already working on this
project.
Specifically? Or
I've been asking for, I asked in City Council a year ago, so.
Yes.
But I'm finally getting my signs, and it took how much, a year, over a year?
Councilmember Hanley's very happy. Mike Sanders and Kevin Marquez have been, this is their project.
Okay. I'll take it back to both of them and make the request and find out.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. It was a very good report.
Good. All right. Thank you all for your time. I wish everybody a happy holiday.
Thank you. All right, we have a public comment on this item. Sandra Sullivan.
Sandra Sullivan, and usually I come really dressed up, but I wasn't planning on coming today. So on the multimodal, which is nearly twice as much as of the total of anything else, I was wondering if there's any specific amount in there allocated to Brightline specifically, if you would mind answering that afterwards. And then also, under key projects, you had added a project for Jackson, funding in 2020, 2024, 25 for 3-point-something million. And related to that, I have been coming here for a few years because I live on the barrier island, and we do not have a sidewalk in unincorporated South Patrick Shores. And so we have kids that have to cross very busy A1A twice in order to go to school in Satellite Beach at the schools. And I've been coming here asking for projects. Well, there was a project that was funded, and I have the project number here, or not funded. It was in the design phase. I checked the project while I was sitting here. There is no funding allocated to actual construction. So this is the second Satellite Beach project that has gone through with funding while we in unincorporated the butt of the county, I guess, because we have SCAT bus benches that have been laying on the ground with the county mowing around them for nearly a year until I finally sent a picture and it gets picked up that weekend, but we don't have replacements. We've had pads for bus shelters, but they seem to went to Satellite Beach. So I don't understand why the municipal has so much more influence than the unincorporated area to where we're still waiting on sidewalks. And here we have, you got Jackson that already has sidewalks, so it's not critical need, but here we don't have sidewalks in South Patrick Shores, and we have kids that have to go a mile down the road to those schools to get to school, to the middle school or the high school. And their lives are at risk because that highway is increasingly busy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
And I'd like that question asked about Brightline because just the round by the lobbyists to our county commissioners are requesting between $80 and $100 million for that new station. And Brightline invested $38 million up at the south end of Tyco. I don't really see how they need our money, but I'm kind of curious how much FDOT is putting into it.
That does not, FDOT does not represent any Brightline funding.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Madam Chair, I will, not that we normally answer citizen comments, but I don't want to put a nail in this, but as far as those A1A sidewalks, the TPO made an investment with our limited federal funding to fund the design of the A1A sidewalk. And we were looking to the department, because it's a state road, to finish it. This is a perfect example of how we're making investments into state roads because it's important to the community and it is a safety issue, but yet the department was not able to fund the construction. Now the design will be going on the shelf and it will get old, and we will probably have to pay for a design update. So just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you very much. All right, so we still do not have a quorum, so we cannot vote on the consent agenda or the action items.
So we cannot, we're just going to have to, including the election of officers. Oh, all right.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have a question.
Second.
Well, shoot.
Yes, exactly. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. I guess we are.
Is it anything else?
Well, we would ask for any member comments for the good of the order.
No. Oh, okay. Well,
Good.
I'll hold mine until you get that.
No meeting in January, but we will meet in February. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Right here at 1:30. Thank you. Thank you.
Christmas.
And we have a new member.
Welcome, Mayor Dennington. It's a pleasure.
Yeah,